Afternoon, everyone. It's Giles Garnett from DuxSoup here. We've had a few technical issues in the last couple of minutes, so at the moment we don't have Jin on the line. She'll be still on the chat box, which I'm unfortunately unable to look at right now because of technical issues. So yeah, this may be an interesting one. Jin, if you have any issues that you need to raise to me, then message me via Slack, and then I can jump on things. But other than that, I'll be presenting all the way through today, and then I'll follow up with Jin at the end to see if there are any questions from everybody. Hopefully everyone can hear me okay, and yeah, we'll crack straight on with today's webinar. So good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to everyone joining today's DuxSoup webinar, be it that you're watching live or via the recording. Today, we'll be covering best practices when it comes to using DuxSoup Pro. We're trying to ensure that we listen to our users when it comes to the content of our webinars, and as there have been many requests for pro-focused topics, so here we are focusing on this today. So firstly, to introduce myself to those who are new to DuxSoup, my name is Giles Garnett, and I'm Head of Professional Services here at DuxSoup. I have been presenting the webinars for DuxSoup for around the last 9 months or so. So if you've looked back at the recordings, you'll have heard me before probably. And if you require additional support or consultancy through the DuxSoup booster calls or the DuxSoup technical calls, those are what I'm currently running as well at the moment. As always with our webinars, there is an associated blog post to go alongside the topic. And you can always check that out for more information via the normal links on the website. And yes, before anybody asks, a recording of today's webinar will be made available following the webinar. Anybody who's registered for the webinar, whether they're attending or not, will get an automated link to the location of the recording. It will also be posted on our website under the normal webinar page. I'll be presenting a mix of slides and a few live bits, and hopefully things will go more smoothly during the course of the presentation than we had in the minutes leading up to it. But while I'm presenting and talking, Jin will do her absolute best to answer your questions on the web chat, which I'm not going to look at, otherwise I'm going to get distracted. Please do keep and try and keep the questions on topic so that they may be useful for the audience and relevant. Other questions can always be raised via the normal DuxSoup support pages. And then we'll do a quick Q&A at the end of the session as well to fill in any gaps for anybody. So, DuxSoup Pro, designed to help you automate your LinkedIn activity. You can run DuxSoup to automatically view your LinkedIn prospects, and you can have the robot automatically endorse skills of your first-degree connections, and you can send personalized invites and or messages on your behalf. You can use DuxSoup Pro to help you manage your prospects, and you can add notes or DuxSoup tags to LinkedIn profiles that you're reviewing to help you organize and plan your future actions. And with DuxSoup Pro, you can also download profile details to help you build up your own customer database or indeed populate your CRM. I'm not going to go through all of those technical steps today. We're looking focusing really on the best practices around your DuxSoup and LinkedIn activities. So basically, DuxSoup Pro can handle all the repetitive tasks needed to create your early stage lead funnel and then help you qualify prospects further so you're only engaging on a one-to-one basis with the people who you know are truly interested in your proposition. And right, the DuxSoup robot works hard for you all the time, running in the background and giving you more time to focus on the important business activities, on other important business activities. But it's important that you understand the best practices when it comes on how to use the tool and how it works in conjunction with LinkedIn, so that you can stay safe, your account can stay safe, and you can get the absolute best out of the tool. And of course, the wonderful resource that is LinkedIn. So in order to get the best out of DuxSoup, it's really important to understand the basics of how the robot is designed to work. So DuxSoup Pro, as most of you will already be aware, it's a Chrome extension, and it's designed to mimic human behavior on the LinkedIn website. The basic premise of DuxSoup is that all automated actions are executed during automated profile visits on LinkedIn. And then you can harness the power of LinkedIn without having to perform the repetitive tasks. So that's really important to remember. You run the automation, and then DuxSoup gathers the information and does the automation for you. So in all of the webinars, all of the booster calls and technical calls that I do, all of the consultancy calls, etc., the number one most asked question is, how do I keep my account safe? So understanding limits is really important when we're talking about safety. And there are many people who are tempted to push things and achieve quick results. They see the automation, they think they can go at 100 miles an hour, but this is absolutely not recommended if you want to keep your account safe. Now, by default, DuxSoup is configured to remain below the free standard LinkedIn account allowance of 100 visits per day. And you can override this by checking the box in the DuxSoup options. If I just now quickly come out of the slides and go to my DuxSoup options. If I go to my throttling tab here, you can see here that you have the possibility to overwrite the defaults. This is entirely, of course, at your own risk, but you can therefore change the settings according to what you require. We go back to the slides a second. As you can see here, there we go. You have different numbers of visits and messages that you can do per day. For a free account, it's up to 100 per day. For Business Premium, it's around 250 per day. And for Sales Navigator, it's around 500 per day. Now, you would need to be aware of that if you're running DuxSoup Pro in order to connect with a profile or to message your first degree connections, in order to send a message, DuxSoup will visit the profile. So therefore, sending connection requests or direct messages adds to the daily visit total. Now, just as an aside, if you're a turbo user as well, the same applies to automated follow-up messages. DuxSoup visits the profile and then sends the message. So you always need to take that into consideration with regard to managing your daily limits. Now, you can monitor how busy the robot has been on your behalf by checking the counter on the DuxSoup icon. And again, if I just very quickly flick to the options, and I must zoom in because otherwise you won't be able to see this very well. So if I go to my browser settings here, see I've currently got the number 42 up here. If I change this captured profile count to today's visit count, I believe that will be 0 because I reset it earlier. There we go. So you can always change what you're displayed up here, and you can monitor how busy the robot has been on your behalf and see exactly how much data is there. When it comes to sending invitations, there are no set rules that LinkedIn have. But there are many factors that contribute to the to how many you can send, and a lot of that comes down to how good a corporate LinkedIn citizen you are, how well you're targeting people, what your conversion rate of connection requests being sent is, and also how well you're participating within the network, whether you're adding content, whether you're commenting and participating within groups, etc. As a best practice, we advise sending connection requests to no more than 3 to 5% of the number of all your connections on a daily basis. So, for example, if you have 2,500 connections in total, we recommend you send no more or up to 125 requests a day. But of course, as your first degree network then grows, you can gradually increase your daily connection limit. It also very much depends on how busy you want to be. If you're sending 100 connection requests per day and achieving a 30 to 40% conversion rate, then that will keep you plenty busy enough in your follow-up activities as well. Now, to ensure that your lead generation runs smoothly, another really important thing you need to do is to cancel pending connection requests on a regular basis. And having too many pending requests can be a red flag to LinkedIn, indicating that you're attempting to contact too many people you don't know, and that these are the cases where LinkedIn can suspect that you are spamming people. Now, if I'll just show you where we can find that in a second, but as a best practice, we recommend that if an invite has been out there for 3 to 4 weeks, we recommend that you withdraw it. And that's because the person is either not active on LinkedIn, or they're ignoring you, or they're not responding. And we always recommend to keep that number under 500. And I'll very briefly show you where you can find the number of outstanding connection requests. If you go to your network page in standard LinkedIn, you go to your invitation. Oh, better zoom in, otherwise we'll have problems with the refresh. There we go. So we go to invitations. I think it says here, manage if you don't have any. And then you need to go to your sent requests here. And then under here, this is where you can withdraw your invitations. Now, LinkedIn recently removed, I think it's 2 or 3 months ago now, the ability to cancel pending invites in batches. There used to be a little tick box here to select 100 at a time. There is a DuxSoup workaround, which I'll just very briefly show you. If you go to the support page of DuxSoup, and we'll zoom in a fraction, and we go down to under the technical notes here, and then we have this document here, cancel pending invites. And this is something that you should do on a periodical basis, so on a regular basis, in order to withdraw your invites. You can see here there's a brief work instruction to create a bookmark and enter the JavaScript into that bookmark URL. And what will happen is then that the DuxSoup robot will mimic human behavior and go through and automatically withdraw those invites for you to help you manage that. It saves having to go through and arduously tick on every single one and withdraw it. It's the best we can do at the moment with the workaround, thanks to the changes within LinkedIn there. But that's a really, really important thing that you do. And try to keep that number under 500 is our recommendation there. So we now think about the best prep practices when it comes to the limits and the planner and utilization. So when you run DuxSoup, we recommend avoiding browsing LinkedIn manually or running multiple actions in parallel. So this is because of your account safety. You don't want it to look like multiple people are accessing your account simultaneously. That can alter the algorithms within LinkedIn and believe that you are doing something that you shouldn't be against their terms and conditions. What you can do while the tool is running, say, for example, on Sales Navigator, you can do other activities within the standard LinkedIn environment or vice versa, because the platforms are actually completely separate from a LinkedIn perspective there. One of the things that I recommend people do is also then, in order to make space for their manual activities, is to plan their workload and calculate how busy you want the robots to be and plan your work accordingly. If you're sending out 100, 125 connection requests per day, even if the robot is on its slowest setting, that is only going to take 3, maybe 4 hours. And what you can do then is utilize the planner, as you can see here on the right-hand side, to block out periods when you can carry out your manual actions on the platform, safe in the knowledge that the robot is not going to be running in the background and therefore causing problems with simultaneous activities. So really think about how you plan your day, when you're happy for the robot to run on your behalf, and when you're stepping away from LinkedIn, and then when you want to go and do stuff. You can also pause the robot while you're doing stuff if there's urgent messages to respond to, but really minimize the overlap of manual and automated activities. So that's a really, really important thing to consider. If we move on further, and we looked at LinkedIn activity and some best practices here. So whilst managing the daily limits is an important factor in keeping your account safe, it's also really important to be selective with your search criteria and keep your interaction and content relevant to your target audience to make sure that, or to minimize the chance for people marking you as, I don't know this person. LinkedIn users are far more likely to accept your connection request if they see relevance in the connection. So make use of the personalized connection message and try to link your message to the criteria through which you've found your prospects. Now, there are many ways you can do this using DuxSoup, so searching through the traditional criteria or through alumni lists, or perhaps through lists of people who have reacted to posts. Try and reference the source of where you found the people. Maybe it could be referring to a group. And you can help yourself manage your lists by scanning them first and then utilizing the revisit tool. Now, for those of you who are familiar with that terminology, you carry out the scan of your list, you download the scan, and then you can use the revisit tool. And in the process of doing that, if you've seen some of the other webinars relating to Pro and indeed Turbo, you can then make use of the customized fields. You can add additional customized fields to your message content then. Now, another tip here is to streamline your tracking. So you can monitor the effectiveness of your campaign against, for example, certain search criteria. And all you have to do this is to create your search criteria and save it either in Sales Navigator or create a bookmark if you used standard LinkedIn. And then you can also save the same criteria, a search under the same criteria, but narrow it down to just first-degree connections using the LinkedIn filters. And as people accept your invitation, they'll move from one list to the other. And then you can view this, the success of your campaign live within LinkedIn. So I'll just show you an example here. If I go to Sales Navigator, let's zoom in again so that everyone can see. And I go to my saved searches here. So I've carried out a search here for operations manager based within Eindhoven, and I'm looking for second-degree connections. And you can see here, I've got just over 1,000 results on this list here. And what I've done, if I was prospecting this list and was going out to send invitations to these people, what I would do then is I would also then create the same search criteria, but then under the relationship filter, change it to just first-degree connections. And what we should see then is people migrating from one list to the other. And that gives you a really simple and quick way to see how successful your campaign is against your certain target groups. Of course, you can do exactly the same in standard LinkedIn. But what you would do within standard LinkedIn is you would use, for example, let's go to here. So there we go. So I've done a search here. I've just created standard bookmarks here within my browser. So here I've got a similar operations manager based within Brighton and Breda, and I've got 456 results. If I then look, for example, at the equivalent against my first degree search, I can see here I currently have 5 results. And therefore, I would expect to see certain members from the second degree connection migrates to this list as the success of or otherwise of my campaign, as my campaign ran. So it's a really easy way to therefore keep track of how successful or otherwise your particular campaigns are. Okay, and then we'll move on and talk about warnings. Now, if you receive a warning from LinkedIn about, or perhaps got your account restricted, the first thing to do is not to worry. There can be many reasons for warnings. And you might receive, for example, you're out of invitations for now. And that could be your LinkedIn being temporarily restricted from sending invitations to people. Maybe you've been sending too many invitations in a short period of time, or too many invitations have not been responded to. Or the worst one of them all is that too many I don't know this person responses. And those are the ones we're trying to avoid by making sure that we're targeting effectively. If you're restricted from sending more invitations, wait 24 hours before you try again. And in the majority of cases, restrictions are lifted within 1 to 2 days, 24 to 48 hours. Try to withdraw pending invites where possible. Before trying to send further invitations. But once you've withdrawn an invite, you won't be able to resend an invitation to the same recipient for up to 3 weeks. If you have been restricted for being flagged too many times with the I don't know this person, it's likely that LinkedIn is now requiring you to enter an email address for each and every person you send a connection request to. And in this case, we advise you clear outstanding connection requests and wait a couple of days. And if the restriction is not lifted automatically, you can send LinkedIn support a message acknowledging your behavior and the restriction and politely asking if they will lift it. Now, you should also explain to them that you'll be more diligent in your targeting, in the targeting of your connection requests in the future, so that hopefully that doesn't happen again. You can go through an appeals process, and that's documented within the blog post that's associated with this particular webinar as well. So there we go. That sort of summarizes a lot of the best practices here. I know I've skimmed through quite a few of the topics there, but very much one of the things you need to consider when you're active on the platform is making sure you're building up your level of credibility. Ensure that your profile is up to date and relevant. Make sure that you're contributing to the community, because all of these things help build your persona within LinkedIn and therefore give you more credibility on the platform to give you more behavior. Try to plan your activities so you're not overlapping automated actions alongside, so you're separating automated and manual actions, and just be sensible. Remember that the robot is trying to behave in as human a way as possible, and don't be unrealistic with how quickly the robot can go. If you're successful with your targeting, you will see your network grow appropriately, and that should keep you plenty busy enough with all the associated follow-up activities that should be required in a good lead generation process. And at this point, I would normally expect Jin to interject and now give me a series of questions, but of course I'm going to get silence now because her microphone is not working. So I'm going to very quickly flick to here and stop my screen sharing. There we go. And I will go to the questions from Jin. Number one, please could you elaborate what virtual machines can do for account safety? So if you are wanting to run accounts, a number of accounts, or perhaps even your own accounts on a longer term, you could separate the activity and run your DuxSoup instance, if you like, on a separate machine and therefore in isolation from other activity. There are a number of people I'm aware of who run, for example, agencies doing lead generation activities for people who will run those on virtual machines or a server somewhere and have a number of DuxSoup instances running within that server. And that means you can manage them separate to your computer and yeah, manage that separate from your computer and also plan all the activities accordingly. If you run it within that environment as well, you have therefore more possibilities to run, for example, through a VPN, so you can manage the IP or the location that LinkedIn see that the activity is coming from. So hopefully that answers that question. Another question coming in here. When I view profiles manually, is it recording in DuxSoup? Objective. Number one, view profile that have nothing to do with DuxSoup automated process. And two, not prevent DuxSoup from viewing previously viewed profiles. When I view profiles manually, is it recording it? So when you're viewing profiles in DuxSoup, by default, it will manually record all activity. There are certain options in DuxSoup which allow you can have automated actions enabled when you're manually running profiles, and that's something that we use when we're testing, for example. But by default, all activities that you run while the DuxSoup robot is active will be recorded by the DuxSoup robot. Let's go back to the questions. Sorry, one moment. Trying to juggle quite a lot of things here. View profiles that have nothing to do with DuxSoup automated process, and to not prevent DuxSoup from viewing. I'm not entirely sure I fully understand that. Sorry, Jen, if you could elaborate a little more on that or something. Number three, how do we create a list of prospects utilizing DuxSoup, an exportable list? Okay, so I'll go back to screen sharing a second. and show you how you can create a list of prospects using DuxSoup. Let's go to there. So, for example, here I am. Hopefully you can now see my screen again. And if I now go to my second degree list here, so I've got a search here of in a certain location, and I've put in operations manager as my keyword. You can do this exactly the same with any list within LinkedIn. And what you would do now in order to create an exportable list, let me first of all clear my data here a moment. There we go. And what I would do now is I would now scan this list. So I've got 400 and so odd results here. I would go to the DuxSoup robot. The DuxSoup icon has turned green because it's recognized a list within the system. And if I press on there, and I can now go to scan the profiles, and that will therefore scan the high-level data of this list. And you can see straight away the DuxSoup icon has turned blue. That means it's active, and it's immediately grabbed the first 10 profiles there. What we can do now is, what we'll see now is that DuxSoup will reload this page, and it'll now start to scroll through each of the pages in turn, taking high-level data off this list. I don't think I have the robot running particularly quickly at the moment, but I'll just wait for this to run through and grab a little bit of data. Bear with me one moment. We'll just wait for that counter to go up. There we go. It'll scroll through into the second page. It'll take a few seconds, hopefully. Of course, it always takes longer when you're watching it. It's like waiting for the kettle to boil. Okay, well, we have some data here anyway. So there we go. We've now got 20 items here. What I would do now is I would stop the robot. I would actually let this run all the way through to the end normally. But I now have some data. What I can do now with this list, when scanning this list, is I can press on the DuxSoup icon, press the download data button. I would download my scan data because I'm creating my prospect list here. Press on the scan data button. That creates me my CSV file here, which I will open, and we can then see that list here. What we get here is a number of different criteria from each of those people who are on that list. So I get the unique database identifier against each profile. That's their LinkedIn database ID. The time that I scanned the profile, the URL of the profile, first name, last name. In this case, I get job title, location, and other things as well. And what I can do now is if I insert an extra column here and call that P1, I can put some text in those files. I then need to save this file as a CSV file. Let's save that one there as it is. Of course, you do this on a much grander scale. And the other thing I'd do here is I'd also check through the first names to see if there were some strange characters here. In that case, I'm actually going to just take that one out. I'm not going to go back and check that because, of course, I'm going to use the first name tag in my messaging. I'm going to take that one out for now rather than going back and checking to see what their name is. We'll save this as a CSV file and close it. And then we'll go back to my DuxSoup icon and go to the revisit data button. So if I now wanted to run my prospecting against that list, I'd go to the revisit file options, click here to select, upload my scan data file here, and therefore I can now run DuxSoup from this place here. As you can see, I've got my additional customized text here against column P1. And then if I go to my DuxSoup options and I go to my actions, send connection requests to second and third degree connections, for example, include my personalized message. And then I can, as well as using these markers here, I can use the P1 or whatever markers I had there within my message. Always remembering that there is a linked in limit of 300 characters with a connection request message. That's a really important thing to remember. Because yes, I know that it can be a source of frustration that we're limited with characters, but unfortunately it is a LinkedIn limitation. It's not a DuxSoup limitation, that one. So hopefully that's sort of filled in the list there, filled in that that hole there. That's how you would prospect for a list. You can find lists in all sorts of places in LinkedIn. So this is a search result list, for example. But basically, whenever the DuxSoup icon turns green, that's when DuxSoup is recognizing a list. So if I go, for example, to my home page, and if I scroll down to an article that a number of people have reacted to, so for example, here we go, got one here, 25 people have reacted to this post here. If I would like to reach out to these people or scan this list, I can then click on that button there. You see DuxSoup recognizes this list. I could now scan this list and do something with that with DuxSoup, or indeed ask DuxSoup to go out and visit these profiles. And that's a tip that picked up fairly recently as well. You don't have to send messages all the time. You can just let DuxSoup go out and visit profiles, of course, and people will see that you have looked at their profile and they will look back at yours, hopefully. And if your profile is well organized, up to date and relevant, there's a very good chance that people will therefore try and connect with you. We've seen instances where it can be up to 10 to 15% of people whose profiles you have viewed try to connect back with you. So that's something to bear in mind as well. Okay, let's stop sharing that. Again, you showed a number of visits and invitations allowed under different. What about Recruiter Lite? That's a good question. I don't have an answer for that one right now. Is that something that maybe Jin has information around? I don't know what the numbers are for Recruiter Lite, but hopefully Jin can take that question and answer you accordingly. Or indeed, she may be able to type a message straight away because she may have that information to hand. Okay, so Jin's just a message to say, yeah, you cannot send invitations with the Recruiter. So you can view profiles, but you cannot send invitations with the Recruiter. Okay, as there are no further questions, and as I seem to be flying solo at the moment, it's a little trickier than normal, unfortunately, far from ideal, but hopefully I've been able to convey to you useful information today, which you can take forward in your lead generation activities. Let's just go back to sharing my screen a second, and we'll go back to the slides. So thank you for the questions. It's a little more awkward than usual today, thanks to technological limitations. In a couple of weeks' time, we have a turbo-focused product, where turbo-focused webinar, I should say, where we're going to be looking at building a dashboard in Google Sheets using webhooks, something we're working on in the background at the moment. So you're able to utilize the functionality of Google Sheets, the webhook functionality within Google Sheets, without having to rely on the addition of perhaps Zapier or Integromat, and being able to do things directly into Google Sheets. That's coming up in a couple of weeks. As always, there is the booster sessions and the technical sessions available via the website. The calendar is fully up to date, taking a few days off over the summer, but it's all synchronized according to the calendar. So check out on the website for the times and availabilities on those sessions. And as usual, a list of useful links for your convenience here. Our homepage, where we have the blogs, all of the associated blogs that have been published recently. I wrote a blog last week regarding my first 10 months working with DuxSoup and my experiences around that. We've had the best practices one, I think, published earlier today as well to accompany this webinar. We have our suggestions page, the feedback page, which I'm currently going through as well, reviewing a lot of the items on there. All of our webinars, future, past, etc., etc. The easy tutorials through the YouTube channel, our support page, which is manned, of course, by our fabulous support team. You can contact them either via email, or there's the live chat on the support page. And of course, our incredibly active Facebook community, which many of you are very valued members of. It's great to see the amount of interaction there and the advice that community members are prepared to share and support other users with. So that's all great. Thank you ever so much for bearing with me today, and hopefully I'll speak to you all again soon. Stay safe, and if you're going on holiday, enjoy yourselves during the summer. All the best. Thank you and goodbye.